Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Sunny. Welcome back to episode 25 of my podcast, Sunny's Geeky Grove. Wow. Just like last week and like next week in the future, I can tell you that there will be one similar to this. We are talking about Doctor Who. As with the last week's episode, the first one in this little 3-part series, if you will, I talked about season 1 and kind of like how I got into Doctor Who and all that goodness. In this one, I'm going to kind of condense a lot of seasons into a very short episode. I will be talking about 10 and 11 together and briefly on the companions, my favorite episodes, things like that. And, let's just jump into that before we do. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell if you want to get notified. And let's thumb this video up if we like it. And not thumb it down. That's just hurtful. And why do you want to be mean? All right. So, season 2 starts, and we have David Tennant, and we start with the Christmas special. There's Rose, Mickey, Jackie, all this lovely, lovely stuff, and it's just so wonderful. It's amazing. Also, a little side note, apparently, I kind of sound like I'm sick, so I'm going to apologize, and I'm sorry if I sound weird. I am getting over a cold. Anyway, back into Doctor Who. So, the amazing Christmas special where David Tennant's doctor actually gets his hand cut off and regenerates a new one, and which sets up a very wonderful thing for the end of season 4 with 10-2, and just so wonderful. And we still have Russell T Davies helming the show. He's our showrunner. Him and David Tennant get along very well, and they have lots of wonderful chemistry. You can see it on screen through the dialogue choices and things like that. And David Tennant sets himself up as a very sassy, snarky, very physical comedy type doctor. He's also scary. I've heard people say the doctor's not scary. The doctor's not scary. What are you even talking about? How could he be considered scary? David Tennant brings the scary. He can be scary. And Matt Smith, even when he was baby-faced, there were some times where it was just you know what? He can be scary too. So you have, scary doctor and goofy, nerdy, dorky David Tennant. It's wonderful. He does such a phenomenal job playing the doctor that you really buy into his character. And, David has said in many, many, many interviews that growing up, he watched the show and that he always wanted to play the doctor. And, you kind of have those little fangirl moments on behalf of the actors when they get to do things like this. Or even just little, side things from one piece of their work, and then you see them in something else and you're like, oh, hey, that connects to this. For example, there's a 2-parter episode set in New York in 1932, and we have a young Andrew Garfield playing a character, and he actually comments on David Tennant's hair, on the doctor's hair, and is like, wow, your hair is wonderful, or something like that. And he has this short, cut, not a buzz cut or anything like that, but maybe just an inch long hairdo, for the era. And then he gets David Tennant hair in The Amazing Spider-Man when he's much older. It's little things like that. It's hey, he finally got the hair he wanted, which is so silly, but it's just one of my favorite things. I also feel that with David Tennant's doctor, with 10, we are introduced to some of the best companions. Obviously, I'm not going to rank any of my favorite companions. That's next week. But we get a lot of companions introduced with 10. We have Rose. She follows over from season 1. Mickey's in there a little bit. Jackie every once in a while. And then we have Rose's dad. Ends up being a pretty big part. Captain Jack Harkness comes back. We're introduced to Martha Jones. Yes, bitch. And we are introduced to Donna fucking Noble, the best temp in Chiswick's. So, yeah. And obviously, we are introduced to River Song with 10. And seeing their dynamic, man. Oh my goodness gracious. Anyway, like I said, I'm not getting into the companions yet. Not yet. But we're introduced to all these wonderful companions, and I think that the strongest of the companions are in the first 4 seasons. Maybe? I don't know. But in 11's seasons, we are basically introduced to 3. We're introduced to Amelia Pond and Rory, and that's it. And then towards the end, we're introduced to Clara. Like, that's it? Okay, cool. All right. That's fine. All right. Just 3? You don't want new people? Cool. That's fine. I see you found a dynamic you like, Moffat, and you're going to make it work. Can you tell I don't really particularly care for Moffat as a showrunner? He is fantastic as just a staffer, as a writer, as an episodical runner, if you will. He has created, some of the best single individual episodes. He came up with, like I said, the Dr. Dances 2-parter episode with the Are You My Mummy? And he came up with the Silence from season 6, I believe. And, he is the one that wrote Silence in the Library, that 2-parter where we first meet River Song and the Vashta Narada. And he's come up with these wonderful creatures, the Weeping Angels. And it comes up with these truly engaging and terrifying creatures and stories, and then you give him the entire show, and then he just has too much power. I'll get into it a little bit later on, but I do have a few issues with him personally as a showrunner, as my own personal issues, obviously. I would never deign to speak for anybody else. Obviously, all my opinions, and you form your own. That's what this is all about. But back to 10. He is basically, he's my doctor. He's my favorite doctor, tied with 9. 9 and 10. 9's my first doctor, but 10 has my heart. But 9 was my first, and I love 9 so much. It's hard. Okay, it's 10 is above 9 by half a hair. Barely, but he is. I think it's David Tennant just being so wonderful with his chemistry with not only Billie Piper, but also with Catherine Tate, and just all of his other companions and all of the extras and the other people on, in the scenes and in the episodes. He's so dynamic. It really is amazing to see his episodes. Even rewatching them now, I just rewatched them not that long ago. His seasons do stick out to me as some of my favorites, some of the best stories, the best rationales for things. And honestly some of the most heart-wrenching stories. Like the Fires of Pompeii episode really does hit home, which, fun fact, Peter Capaldi, who ends up playing 12, which I'm sure you knew this, is in that episode, and he's one of the people that the Doctor saves from Pompeii's destruction. Also, Karen Gillan, who ends up playing Amelia Pond, Amy Pond later on with 11, plays a soothsayer in Pompeii. So it's, it's a good episode, but it's more of the fact that Donna wants to warn everyone, and the Doctor says, we can't. This is a fixed point in history. There's not a word for volcano until after today. And this is how we get it, basically. And it's just having those little things, those little tugs at the heartstring that kind of put a face to history and also make it more relatable. That's really wonderful. And I feel like they did that very, very well with Tennant's run as the Doctor, because he really does convey this range of emotions. I'm not saying that the other Doctors don't. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm saying my personal preference was 10 and David Tennant. It's just, he's able to, just make it so that I actually care about this random, faceless, nameless person. And it's really, I'm going to say it's really one more time, it's really such a good thing, a fun thing for me, in my opinion, that his seasons were some of the best. They had some of the most terrifying episodes as well. The one in season 4, it's called Midnight. It's my least favorite because there's very, very little Donna Noble, but it has like the scariest creature. It's this creature that you can't see, and then it could be anybody, and it's stalking them on this planet that's basically uninhabitable by any creature. It's got a waterfall of diamonds, and the outside air is like 50,000 degrees or something like that. And there's this creature that's alive and stalking this tour bus, and it gets on and it kills a few people, and then it starts to learn and adapt, and it starts to repeat back everything that the whole bus is saying. And then it starts to repeat back what the Doctor is saying. And then it starts to predict what the Doctor is going to say. It's just, boy. It is it's a creepy, creepy episode. It's one of my favorite. It's not the best episode. If I were going to introduce someone to Doctor Who and they refuse to start from the beginning with Rose, which is dumb, but whatever. If someone's like, I just want to jump in the middle, what's a good episode to get the feel of Doctor Who? Season 4, episode 1, it's called Partners in Crime. It is 10 and Donna Noble and little Addie Bose. I'm waving at that. It's so good. It's adorable, and you get to see their very physical comedy sides coming out, and Catherine Tate and David Tennant, they are classically trained. They are Shakespearean British actors, and they have done Macbeth and Hamlet, and they've done Much Ado About Nothing. And then you see them on screen together and interacting, and just, you're like, holy shit, yeah, these guys are good. And they have such great chemistry. And there is something to be said about two characters who love and trust each other so wholly and completely and care for each other so deeply with no romantic interest whatsoever. It is so wonderful to see that on screen between, technically the doctor is, not a gender. The doctor is portrayed by David Tennant, who is male, and while he is portrayed by David Tennant, who is male, he identifies as male, but gender fluid. Time Lords are pretty gender fluid, but to see that portrayed by a male and a female on a TV show and having them be the leads and not romantically linked or pining over each other, it's so wonderful. It's refreshing. It's funny. It's just so wholesome. They're so good together. This is not a spoiler for next week's podcast. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, and then you do see him interacting with River Song and him interacting with Rose and with Martha and seeing those different dynamics all playing out. And you can see that David Tennant really does feed off of his co-star beautifully, wonderfully, perfectly. And that's why, I've been talking 16 minutes on David Tennant. Like, he's just amazing as a doctor. Conversely, we have Matt Smith, who was at the time the youngest doctor. I believe he still is. I think Jodie Whittaker is just a little older than him. A little bit. Anyway, he was the youngest doctor at the time at 31 to be cast as the doctor when David Tennant was ready to leave and he was parting ways, as well as Russell T. Davies was stepping down as showrunner and Steven Moffat was coming up. They cast Matt Smith as 11. And they got rid of Donna, and they got rid of all the other companion ties from RTD era, and we shift into the Moffat era, which it's a very different tonal shift as far as aesthetics and themes. You can tell that it's trying to be quirkier, trying to be edgier, trying to create memes and force, wow, this got real negative real fast, and trying to force things. I wear bow ties now. Bow ties are cool. Like, don't get me wrong, you're rocking it, but let's not just repeat something and hope that it's gonna become a meme, or that you'll make a meme out of it. Like, oh, I wear fezzes now. Fezzes are cool. Like, yeah, sure, okay. You don't gotta, we're not gonna do that. Like, Rory became the man who waited because he proved time and time again that he would wait for Amy. And you didn't keep saying, oh, Rory, the man who waited. You did towards the end once it became a meme, but it didn't start out that way. But anyway, so we do have Matt Smith as the youngest doctor ever cast, and we have Amy Pond, played by Karen Gillan. You might know her as Nebula from Guardians of the Galaxy, or from that amazing movie Oculus. Anyway, and they're both bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they're so young. And the whole aesthetic shifts. It changes. It becomes a little less focused on human connection, on the human condition, on people in history as a whole, and it becomes more about setting up a season-wide story arc from the very beginning and focusing on that kind of, and becoming more of a mystery type show, I guess, for lack of a better terminology. It really becomes more like, hey, who's the silence? What's the silence? Why is, the entire nation forgetting about this? Or what happened over here with this? And why doesn't anybody remember the doctor? And blah, blah, blah. Things like that. Like, it's fun. It's great fun. It's still engaging and enthralling, but it's not necessarily like we're going to the day that Pompeii basically gets wiped off the map, and we're going to meet these people and talk with them, and we're going to interact with them and experience life with them before they all fucking die. Like, it's not that. It's more, ooh, I'm creating a mystery, and I'm gonna put the doctor in a cowboy outfit with a hat and give him a gun, and he's gonna be all stylish. Like, it's great fun. It's wonderful to watch. And Matt Smith and Karen Gillan, they have such wonderful chemistry. And you throw Arthur Darvill in there, and the three of them together are just so wonderful together. It really is just great to see the three of them work. Now, I'm not going to get into much between their dynamic. That's not really the point of this. I will say that I absolutely hated Amy for how she treated Rory in the beginning. Thankfully, her character grew and she learned her lesson. Like, that's a spoiler that I want people to know. Like, if you hate how she treats Rory in season 5, whew, boy, by the end of season 7, has she grown and really shown that she's worthy of how perfect and amazing Rory is for her, because he is just so pure and so good. And I love Rory. And, obviously River Song thrown in the mix. So good. The four of them together is just, it's wonderful. And then we have the end where Clara's there, and then Matt Smith is starting to bow out, and we have basically we get the reveal of how Clara came to be, and all this time while we're trying to learn this mystery of Clara, we're getting hints from lots of different things, but the main hints were from, the intro. There was a rose and a wolf in the sky and made out of stars, and there's a mention of, this like pocket dimension, and a lot of the fan theories and what basically Moffat and them were trying to subtly confirm was that Clara was potentially Rose, Tyler, and 10-2's daughter from that parallel universe. And that's how she was in, all of these places and helping the doctor all throughout his life. And then, basically we have Rose and the bad wolf, and we're seeing it, and it's so close. And then it's just a big middle finger to all the fans. And he went on record, if I remember correctly, I struggled to find the exact quote, so I am paraphrasing from written interviews, that essentially Rose's storyline is over. Stop trying to make it happen. Basically, like, stop trying to make fetch happen, Gretchen. It's not going to happen. Which, it's not necessarily that we want Billie Piper and David Tennant back. We want a nod to the past. Because that's Doctor's past. That's our past with the show. That's our history. That's our shared collective history, is Rose and 10-2. And Clara would have been a nice little bridge and nod to the origins of this Doctor Who reboot. We've had nods, with other things. We've had K9 come back. We've had Sarah Jane come back. We've had past actors who have played previous incarnations of the Doctor come into the 50th anniversary. Like, we've had little nods like that, but we can't, we're assholes for thinking that maybe it was this, even though that only happened a few years ago, in the reboot, of course. Through the seasons, it's a very long time. I believe seasons 5, 6, and half of 7, while we have Amy and Rory, I believe the timeline is that takes place over 20 to 30 years. So they age a lot. And the Doctor, doesn't, because he's a Time Lord. But he's mainly, coming back to them only a day or two later, or away from them for a day or two, but he's coming into their timelines later and later, basically. So yeah, it was basically like a middle finger to us for wanting to have just a little bit of a connection, a little bit of a tip of the hat to the previous incarnations, the previous seasons, the previous companions. And that felt very disingenuous, very hostile towards the fans. Like, how dare you want something from RTD's era in my era? Are you serious? How dare you? So I was a bit turned off on that. It left a very sour taste in my mouth. And when 11 reincarnated at the end of season 7, regenerated, not reincarnated. Wow. I did not proceed with the show. I had finished out 11's story arc, and I did not care for Clara. She was portrayed fine. The actress who plays her is phenomenal. She's adorable, funny, kooky. There's nothing wrong with her character. It just, there wasn't much for me one way or the other, as far as, she wasn't somebody that was just your average shop girl, or somebody that had, been a doctor in her, like her internship and practicing to become a full-fledged doctor. She wasn't, a time traveler or, found on a distant planet. Like, she was just a girl who stepped into the Doctor's timeline. Like, that's basically all I knew about her. I'm sure they probably elaborate on it further, but the fact that I had seen her 6 or 7 times, and each of them were interesting, but not really, not specific, not engaging. There was nothing that made her uniquely her. She was just generic Victorian lady, generic so-and-so. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but I mean, she wasn't like me. She wasn't somebody who was, fantastical in the sense that she wasn't somebody that already knew the Doctor or was from the future and worked with Torchwood, or she wasn't somebody that, was from a parallel universe. She just didn't resonate with me. And so when Matt Smith bowed out, I said, cool, I'm really excited for Peter Capaldi. I hope that he does well. But as long as Moffat's the showrunner, I'm outie, basically. So I have seen, I think, one episode with Capaldi because it was on BBC, and yikes. But I think that, he did really well. I've seen gift sets and, I've seen clips, and he seems adorable and kooky and, fun, I guess, if you want to say fun. Anyway, but yeah, I've heard that, that Moffat has done a lot to really, set up for the most recent season, which is, I will give him that. He basically introduced one of the big bads, if you will, from even the original series. And, introduced dynamics that he paved the way for the Doctor to be regenerated into a woman, basically, is where I'm getting at. Jodie Whittaker has been cast as 13, and I was very excited. And then I guess an entire season came out, and I haven't seen an episode of it, or something. I don't know. I haven't seen it. There was no Christmas special when they were regenerated. That's going to happen a lot if I keep talking. But, yeah, so there was no Christmas special, there was no, regeneration special, there was no, and then it was pushed back, there was no more in 2018. Did it even come out in 2019? And now I hear that her and the new showrunner, her and Chris Chibnall are no longer going to be coming back after their most recent season, or for the next season. I don't know. And, obviously we had all that backlash with people who say keep the Doctor a man, which is crazy because you feel like it's coming from people who have never seen the show, or if they had seen the show, didn't watch it all the way through, because where was this backlash for Missy? It doesn't make sense. The point is, I didn't even know it came out, or that it has come out. Maybe it hasn't. I don't know, but I haven't seen it. But I love Jodie Whittaker. She was phenomenal on Broadchurch. Another really great show. You should be watching it. So good. David Tennant, Jodie Whittaker, Olivia Colman. Come on. It's just so many wonderful people. Arthur Darville's in there for a few episodes, or a good handful of episodes. It's very dark. Very dark. Actually, it centers on the murder and sexual assault of a very young boy in a very sleepy town in England. That is not the point of this episode. But yeah, so I was rooting for Jodie Whittaker. I was rooting for Chris Chibnall. And now I'm lost. I'm wafting in a sea of confusion. America, explain. But, yeah, when it comes down to it, I will always stan a female Doctor, and Jodie Whittaker is a phenomenal actress. She is so good. I strongly recommend Broadchurch if you haven't seen it. I strongly recommend all of Doctor Who if you haven't seen it. I will eventually go back to season 8 and beyond and watch 12, because I know that even though I might not like how Moffat conducts himself and his shows, I know that it's still going to be my Doctor. Through all of the iterations that I've seen, that I've experienced, I've loved the Doctor. I've loved 9, 10, 11. I've seen 1, even the few episodes that I was able to 100% legally obtain. Netflix had them at one point too, and I've seen very few episodes of one, but I have seen it. And so it's still the Doctor. I feel like no matter what, the writing of the Doctor, even if it has its own personality attached to it, it's still the Doctor. It's still our Doctor. And so I know that I will love it. And I know that Peter Capaldi is a very good actor. And I know that, I can suffer through the Moffatism of it all to really get to the meat of the character and learn more about Clara. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. I'm sure. I am on board, if you want to put it that way. So I think that it will be something that I will eventually do. Maybe I'll start, though, with season 1, episode 1, Rose. What? No, I wouldn't do that. Why would I do that? Who does that? Who watches shows over and over again? I don't even know what you're talking about. I've never sat down and watched iZombie through 6 times. What? Anyway, that's probably going to be 2 weeks from now, why you need to watch iZombie. But we are coming up on the 40-minute mark here, so I am going to end it. So it looks like the only place that you can stream Doctor Who is with your Amazon Prime membership, or you can buy them in standard definition and high definition. You can buy seasons or episodes. I would say just get Prime, even if it's for 2 months, because then you get the free shipping. And that's just me. So, with that, I would like to ask you to leave a comment down below. Let me know who's your favorite Doctor. Once again, 10 is just like a half a hair above 9, and then 11 for me. But let me know who's your favorite Doctor. Next week, I will be discussing my companions and my order of the companions for the reboot of Doctor Who. And we can find in the comments about who's our favorite and why so-and-so is the worst, because I'm going to give my honest opinion on that too. If you are new here, subscribe if you fucking made it this far. Like a badass. Leave a comment down below saying that bees are wonderful. And no one's gonna do that because no one fucking comments. But you know what? I still love you. My name is Sunny, and once again, you have been amazing and phenomenal. If you are still listening, I do hope you have a wonderful day. You deserve it. You are a truly, truly wonderful person. I almost just said you are truly Greg, but I'm not Danny Gonzalez. I'm Sunny. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, ring bells, comments, watch it again. I don't know. Be good people. Nope, that's James H. Needs. Okay. My name is Sunny. You've been amazing. I hope you have a wonderful day. I will see you next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Bye.